And today I want to talk about something that I love to talk about, and that is nonprofit websites. I've dealt with a ton of websites over the years, both for-profit and nonprofit, and this is something that everybody is struggling with, is to turn their website into a high converting machine. So whether you run a online store and you're selling products, of course you want people to convert and buy things. Whether it's a nonprofit and you're trying to get donors and volunteers, well, you know we don't run without donors and volunteers. And so of course you want that to happen. And so we build these websites and we pour our heart and soul into them, hopefully, and we throw them out there, and sometimes they just flop, right? The good news is there's lots of things we can look at. There's lots of things we can tweak in order to get our websites better than where they're at. And so today we're gonna look at a 14-point checklist that I've put together of just things that I look for when I'm evaluating a nonprofit's website. And I think it's gonna be helpful to you. As a matter of fact, if you wanna download the checklist, you're more than welcome to. You can find that down in the description below. But if you'll follow along with me, take some notes, I think you'll pick up some things that can help your nonprofit turn your website into the converting machine that you always hoped it would be. So let's get started. All right, let's jump into this. 14 steps to a better converting nonprofit website. Now, I could spend forever on every single one of these, so I'm going to attempt to go kind of fast and still provide value. And so don't forget, go to chase-douglas.com/checklist and grab this free checklist. That way you have it after this video. You can mark things off. It's got some action steps in it for you so that you can go through and make sure that you cover it all. But let's jump into this. So your first one is to have a clear value proposition. What does that even mean? I'm glad you asked. A clear value proposition is basically your elevator pitch. So if you don't know what an elevator pitch is, it's summing up what it is that your organization does, who you help, what kind of value you bring, how long you've been doing it, all those things summed up into about 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 seconds max. It's literally as if you stepped into an elevator with somebody and they turned to you and they said, "What do you do?" And you're able to clearly, between the next 2 or 3 floors of that elevator, tell them what it is that you do. And not just high level 30,000 foot view, but enough detail that it actually intrigues them, causes them to ask more questions or want your business card or whatever that may be. Same idea on your website. You want to clearly and quickly articulate what it is that you do, the impact that you're having, so that somebody might want to find out more information. It is a brief, punchy statement that clearly explains what your nonprofit does, who you help, and why your work is important. And then on a website, you're going to want to also include how someone can get involved, and that's normally done through a call to action button. So let's take a look at some examples. This first one here is just one that I found locally, a organization called the Lullaby House. So I want you to picture this for a second. This is the above the fold of a website. That means it's the section that loads when you first load up a website without scrolling. So everything that is visible in your screen, whether that's a desktop, a laptop, a iPad, a phone, whatever size your screen might be, it is going to be different information. And so everything that is here right now, visually, that's words, that's text, that's colors, that's images, is painting a picture in my mind. It is the elevator pitch, and it is going to tell me what it is this organization does. So what I'm seeing is maybe something to do with children and babies because it's called the Lullaby House. And then I also see pictures of babies and mothers and children. I don't see any fathers, so I'm assuming this is for single mothers and children. But all they've really told me is we're here for the community. So I don't really know what they do. I've kind of semi-gathered that they might help women and children or single moms and children. But I don't know the depth of what they do and how they help these people and how long they've been helping them and to what capacity and how I can even jump in and help if I wanted to, or how I could learn more. Like, none of that is here. So they've really left us hanging. I mean, think about this. If you were to hop into an elevator with somebody and they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "We're here for the community." Well, that wouldn't really tell them anything. They'd have more questions than they had answers, and that's a bad place to leave them. So I scrolled further on their website and I found this section that actually told what it is that they do. And so this is actually a perfect example of what should have been above the fold. So they could have still said, "We're here for the community," then said, We are your full service resource for all things baby. We aim to strengthen families, provide education and physical resources, and safe housing for at-risk and homeless teen moms and their children under 3 years old. And they could have really even summed that up even shorter and still gotten that whole impact statement right above the fold. And then a great call to action to take that next step would have been watch this video. And that would have intrigued me so much between all the beautiful imagery that's here, the colors. They really painted a good picture with everything except for their words. And they could have fixed that very easily and drawn me in to take my next step with this video. So let's take a look at another one. This one is called the Mint Foundation. And this is once again just a random local nonprofit. And I don't really know what they do from looking at their website. Okay, so this is a bad example for several reasons. One, their logo has so much stuff going on in it. It's got social media icons. It's got tiny little text that you can't even read. The Mint Foundation, just standing on its own, doesn't tell me what they do at all. I'm looking at a picture of what looks like a family or children with toys, but everything that's here is still Christmassy, and they even have a Christmas Candyland registration thing at the top. So I'm recording this in mid-February. So lots of things wrong with this, and they're just not clearly telling me what they do. They do have a statement down at the bottom that says, laying the foundation for a stronger community, but it's covered up by their cookies, accept or deny pop-up. I'm most likely not even going to see that because I'm so distracted by everything else that's going on here, and it just really tells me nothing. So we'll move on to the next one. This one's called Heart of Courage. Looks like they have a tagline underneath their logo. It says uniting families, changing futures. So it tells me something, but it's pretty vague. And then their main tagline in their header says CPS case, children in foster care. Heart of Courage is here for you. Okay, so I've gathered from the image and from their tagline, uniting families, changing futures. They're dealing with families. Looks like maybe possibly moms who are going through difficult times dealing with CPS or dealing with foster care. So not a terrible, terrible job, but they didn't really tell me the details, right? They didn't really sell me on anything, and they're actually kind of talking to one particular audience. They're talking to me as if I might need help with my CPS case or children in foster care. That's great if I am a person that needs that and I've landed here and now I can get help, and that might be their intention, and that's great. However, if I'm a potential volunteer or donor or I'm just trying to find out more information on this nonprofit, they spent all of their time talking to one person and didn't actually tell me what it is really that they do and the impact that they're having. So once again, I scrolled, I found all the way down on their footer with really terrible font. Not only is the font not a good font to use for legibility, but it is pink on top of purple, which makes it really hard to read. If my eyes can even focus on it. It says, empowering mothers with children in foster care to unite their families and create a better future for both mother and child. So once again, they've done a great job of actually summing up what it is that they do in their elevator pitch. They've just not put it in the right place. They missed their opportunity to really drive it home in the above the fold. They have a great image here. They could have very easily had a great punchy headline and then given me that text there, empowering women with children in foster care, blah, 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 blah. And I would have known exactly what it is that they do. All right, so let's look at a good example. So this is No Hungry Children. So I see their name kind of already tells me that they must not like children going hungry, so they're feeding children. But it tells me your spare change can end child hunger. Join a community of donors that are dedicated to transforming the lives of children in the slums of Nairobi, Kenya. $5 will feed a child for an entire month. Feed a child monthly. Okay, so not only do I get imagery, and actually if you were looking at this on a live website, it was a video playing in the background, so it had video of children, the actual children that they're feeding. It showed them, at school. That showed them eating. It showed them in their natural environment. It gave you a really clear picture of who it is that you were helping. Then they caught you with this headline of "Your spare change can end child hunger," which is a great engaging headline because it's kind of a bold statement telling me that I can pull change out of my pocket and I can actually do something to change the world with it. Then told me that they are a community of donors who have come together to transform these specific children's lives, and that I can do it with just $5 a month. So this was done really well, and this is a great example of how you can take your elevator pitch, you can make it intriguing so that I want to ask more questions, and then you can lead me to exactly where you want me to go next. And in this case is they're looking for donors and they're wanting you to give right away. All right, so number 2, user-friendly navigation. So a user-friendly website's navigation is all about making it super easy for people to find what they're looking for on your website. Think of this like a roadmap for your website. You want to make sure that anybody who stumbles across it can get from point A to point B without getting lost along the way. All right, this means having simple, intuitive menu that's easy to understand with clear labels. When people do click on a menu item, they should land on a page that's well organized and gives them all of the information that they need to go further down the path that they were on. So basically, a user-friendly website's navigation is like a helpful friend who's always there to guide you in the right direction. So let's look at some examples. Once again, random nonprofit website from my area. Here's the thing is I truly believe in simplifying your navigation. The best way to make a clear navigation that's going to help somebody get from point A to point B is to give them the least amount of options possible. And so although this organization, it's not terrible what's up here, but they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 main links in the navigation. And then a lot of those are drop-down menus. So they have even more in there. I think I counted like 17 links that I could click on in the navigation. Plus, they've got 2 call to action buttons there, read more about us, and board and staff. They've also got call us, email us up in the top left, and they got all their social up in the top right. So my options on this website right above the fold are vast. Now, the downside to that is you only get about 9 to 15 seconds of somebody's attention span when they're sitting here, and you're already trying to just clearly communicate your value proposition to this person. And so if that's what you're focused on, when they want to take that next step and navigate deeper into your website, the best way to do that is to sum up all of your options into 3 or maybe 4 buckets at the most. So just a brief example, they could have at least grabbed the about, the second link that's there, and news and contact, and maybe even events, and put all of that into one bucket that just says about our organization. So if they would have found a way to put at least some of these into bigger buckets that made the most sense, that got people from where they're at right now to just their next step, they would have been much better off. And I think that's the biggest problem, is so many organizations are like, in their mind, they're thinking we have all of these things we want people to do or to know about or to read about or to check out. And they're thinking from A to Z, and you need to be thinking from A to B. I need to get the user from where they're at right now to just that next baby step. And then on that page, I'll get them to their next baby step. And then on that page to their next, right? And so what we do so often is we try and give everybody all of their options all at once. And instead we run them away because there's just too much to choose from. So let's look at another one. No Hungry Children again. So they've got 2 buckets. Our story, which is going to have everything about the organization, the leaders, the board, how they got started, what they're doing now. And then how you can help is the second bucket, which is more like all of these other things you can do to get involved. And then there's the main call to action that they have on their entire website, just said differently. So they have Give Today right there. And then the only other button above the fold says Feed a Child Monthly. And so they've really got 1, 2, 3, 4 options max right here above the fold. And 2 of them are the same thing. So they've really summed it up to, here's the 3 things that I'm giving you that you can choose from, or you can scroll and figure out what other options you might have. But ultimately, I want you to pick between these 3 things, And that's going to clearly navigate somebody from point A to point B. All right, so number 3, you want a mobile responsive website. This should be a no-brainer in 2023, but it's clearly not, because I literally just went and pulled random websites in my area that are nonprofits to use as examples as we walked through these things. And out of the ones that I pulled up, most of them were not mobile responsive. And so let's look at some examples. Here's these 3, right? One of them that we've seen before. Here's a new one. And then there's No Hungry Children again. So see the difference. If I was to pull this up on a phone, now I know these are not phones. This is my browser window, just dragged smaller. Mobile responsive just means your website should respond to whatever size the browser window is. Because keep in mind, not only are people going to be on, yes, a tablet or a phone or a computer, but every tablet might have a different screen resolution. And then every phone, lots of them have different screen resolutions. And then laptops, for example, I could open up a browser window and I could make it any size that I want. It could be a square, it could be a rectangle, it could be a really long rectangle, right? And people do that kind of stuff with their web browsers. You won't be able to have a solution for every random thing somebody might do with their web browser, but it should at least cover the majority. And so as you see here, this first one, this Positive Reflections website, I would have to scroll to the to the right to even read anything on this page. Same thing with Heart of Courage. I don't get to read really anything that's on this website. And so now it's basically broken and I'm going to leave. And then you've got No Hungry Children, which has taken what we saw before and just shrunk it down so that it fits on my mobile device. All right, number 4, engaging headlines, okay? Engaging headlines are like a hook that reel people in. So these are the first things people will see when they land on your website or a section on your website, and they're going to set the tone for the rest of the content. If you didn't know, most people, when they scroll through a website, they are not reading every single word. Instead, they're looking for the bullet points. And bullet points just so happen to be the things that stand out, which would be headlines and call to actions. All right, so a great headline should be attention grabbing, concise, and give people a good idea of what they can expect from the rest of that section. When people do see a headline that piques their interest, they're more likely to keep reading and learn more about your nonprofit and what you're doing, or about that topic of that section that they might have scrolled to. Moving on, number 5, high quality images. All right, so images help to bring your message to life. They grab people's attention and they make your site feel more real and authentic. So if you remember back at the very first one that we were looking at, and I told you that Lullaby website did a really good job of telling a story through their images, right? I actually gained more knowledge on who they were and what they did through their images than I did the text that was there. So that's extremely important. Now, not everybody is going to pay attention to that kind of stuff. There are some people that are just not visual people and they're just going to read text. And so you can't always just rely on the images, but your images should play a huge part in telling the story, as well as images bring emotion to your website. They cause people to feel something, and that comes from everything from the colors to the people that are in there to whatever is actually happening in the image. So a great image can convey a lot of information in just a split second, and it can help to build emotional connections with your visitors. And with social media being such a big part of our lives, and we see images all over the place, having eye-catching images on your site is also going to help spread your message further and reach more people. Don't skimp on or use bad stock images. Make sure they're high quality, relevant to what you're doing, and they tell a story that connects with your audience. Let's look at some examples. So here is a stock image of 2 people shaking hands in business suits and some kind of weird electricity connectivity thing going on. And I bring this picture in because I see this kind of stuff all of the time on nonprofits' websites, okay? This is the opposite of an engaging image. It really doesn't tell me much. It leaves me with questions. It also just doesn't really strike much emotion because I'm not seeing people's faces. I can't relate with either one of these people. And so it does me no good when I could have chosen a stock image of two people shaking hands that looked like this. Do you see the difference? Right? This to this. Same thing, two people shaking hands. So if I wanted to show, trust or whatever kind of emotion I'm trying to get across here, showing real people's faces, showing warm, natural environments, showing smiling faces, and take it a notch even further, I would want to try and use people that look like volunteers or donors or the people that my organization serves in my pictures. So once again, bringing up the Lullaby website or No Hungry Children, right? They put the people that they are actively helping in their photos. And if you can get great photography on your own of actual people that your organization helps, that's always going to be the better option. But if you can't, there is great stock footage out there that you can use that doesn't look like this, but instead looks like this. And once again, this just brings so much more emotion, shows real people's faces. There's actually statistics that show in ads when you're using stock photography or images in ads in general, that if you can show people's faces, it has a 30% more click-through rate than ones without faces. And that's just us as human beings wanting to connect with other human beings that we feel like we have something in common with. So once again, Heart of Courage, right? This is a stock image. And they've done a great job of finding somebody that looks like a real person, a real young mom who I might be helping with. And it's showing their face and it's showing the emotion that they're probably feeling if they're having to deal with CPS and foster care. So it's a great example of how to use stock photography. So this is a great way to use photography. One of the things that they're doing is not only showing the people that they are actually serving, these children, and they're showing variety, right? There's all kinds of different ethnicities here. But one thing that's happening here is all of these children generally are looking in the direction of their value proposition that's there on the page. And so naturally, this is actually going to cause readers to then focus on the area that's being looked at. And so they've done a great job of not only putting together who they are right here and having call to actions and having good imagery, but they're using all of that together to pull their website visitor into the right spot to learn more about them. All right, number 6, a clear call to action. The call to action on your website should be clear. This is going to make it extremely obvious to your visitor what they should do next, which is going to help increase engagement with your website. And ultimately, a singular call to action on a page is going to be ideal. So as I mentioned before, what a lot of nonprofits do is they try and cram everything that they want somebody to do all on their homepage. And so every section might have 3 or 4 different calls to action that are completely different from each other. It might be sign up for our newsletter, learn more about us, check out this video, donate to this cause. And I understand that you want your visitor to know what their options are, but ideally you want to land somebody on a page that has a singular call to action so that everything you're doing is speaking to that call to action and giving them a reason to be motivated to even click on your call to action button and go ahead and move forward with that conversion. Ideally, your homepage should really just be for people who find you organically through Google search. And even more ideally, if your SEO is good, then people are going to find you and find a relevant page on your website that is relevant to the search term that they put into Google. And so if that's the case, then that page would have a very relevant call to action on the entire page that just leads them to the one thing you want them to do. And so if your homepage has multiple things, that is okay. You just want to make sure that your call to actions are very clear. So in other words, stop saying learn more or click here as your call to action, because that doesn't really tell the user anything. And if you remember before, I told you that most people are going to scan your page and they're looking for the bullet points, which is your headlines and your call to actions. Those things are going to stand out. So if I can read your headline and I can read your call to action and I know basically what the section is about, then if I'm actually interested, I'm either going to read more underneath your headline or I'm going to click on the call to action because I was intrigued. I was motivated, whatever the case is, and I'm going to move forward. So here's some examples. These are just two of the largest nonprofits on the internet. And if you notice, so let's look at this first one on the left. It says the headline, disastrous earthquake hits Syria and Turkey. So I know exactly what this section is about. And if I didn't read the text in the middle and I just looked at the button, it says send life-saving support. Notice that it didn't say click here, or it didn't even just say donate. This is much more engaging and a clear call to action. So if I didn't read anything, didn't even look at the image, and all I saw was the red button because it stands out, I pretty much know what this pop-up is about because the button tells me everything. And that's an ideal call to action, is that it's super clear and concise, and I know what I'm getting myself into just by looking at the button. Same thing over here on the right. They had this rotator full of different science and medicine news, but I noticed as I scrolled through this website, I actually kind of skipped over the whole rotator. Like there's just too much small text and images. Your brain just kind of skips over it. And so I just looked down and I saw the button that said more science and medicine. So I immediately, between the headline and that button, know exactly what this entire section is about, and I didn't have to stop and read the little details. This button just made it very clear. Once again, it could have just said click here or learn more, which is what most people leave their buttons and their call to actions as, and it's just not as clear. So this is one more example. This was an entire section, and this is another way to do call to actions. Rather than being descriptive necessarily, you're actually giving the user some ownership and giving them a chance to almost feel regret if they don't click the button, because their button says, I want to help. So by me not clicking the button, I'm admitting that I don't want to help. Does that make sense? So this is just another psychological way to get into the user's head and actually use your button to, once again, stir up emotions that's going to cause them to want to click the button and get involved. And you would not have had that same effect if you just said, learn more or click here. And so this is why call to action buttons are so important. All right, number 7, fast loading speeds. Okay, your website cannot be slow. This is going to improve your user's experience greatly if your website can load quickly and smoothly. It's going to give them that better experience when browsing and increasing the likelihood that they're going to stay on your website longer. So remember, I said you only have about 9 seconds of attention span from somebody being on your website to communicate everything you're wanting to communicate to them, but you really only have 30, 45 seconds of them being on your website just randomly scrolling. And so if you want to keep them on there even longer to have a better chance at grabbing their attention with a headline or with a very clear value proposition or a really engaging call to action button, then you're going to have to make things super fast, super easy for them to use. This is also going to obviously reduce your bounce rate. So if your website takes too long to load, we've all been in this situation before, we leave, right? When I load something up on my phone and it's just taken forever to load the page, I might even hit refresh one time because maybe it was, the location that I was in or the Wi-Fi that I was on. But if it doesn't load pretty quick, it really wasn't that important to me, and I'm going back and I'm going to go on to the next thing on my search results, or I'm just going to move on to something else that's going on in my life. You will also increase your conversion rates when you have faster loading times because users are going to be more likely to complete a transaction or fill out a form or watch a video if their website is responsive and easy to navigate. This will also increase your SEO. Search engines like Google use website loading times as a ranking factor. So a faster website is going to improve your search engine rankings and make it easier for users to find your website out there on the internet. But the inverse is also true that if your website is slow, Google is also going to down rank you and put other websites that might be in the same industry as you above you on the search results. So I have a free website audit that you can use. If you've never done a website audit before, I recommend you go here to my website, chase-douglas.com/audit. And you can stick in your website URL right here and your email address. Click get your free audit. It's completely free. It'll automatically load a website audit for whatever web address you put in there, display it right there on the screen for you. It has a ton of information in it, but one of the things that it evaluates is website speed. So this is just a great tool that I recommend everybody use at some point to get a website audit done, and it's completely free, so go check it out. All right, number 8, have trust signals visible on your website. All right, third-party certifications are great for this with nonprofits. That's recognized organizations such as the Better Business Bureau or Charity Navigator or GuideStar. These can help show that your nonprofit is reputable and has a proven track record of accountability. Also, donor badges are great. So displaying seals from recognized payment processors can help show that your nonprofit is legitimate and has a secure donation process in place. Along those same lines, SSL certificates installed and enforced. So if you don't know what that is, that's if your website starts with HTTPS, and that means it's secure, and it's normally green in the browser, and it normally has a little lock symbol next to it. And if you've ever been to a website that doesn't have an SSL certificate, you normally get some kind of error saying, hey, this website might not be secure, and that's going to scare people off immediately. But I also recommend nonprofits that you talk to whoever manages your hosting and make sure that they get your SSL certificate set up, but they also enforce it. And so that means if I was to accidentally manually type in HTTP and then your website, then it's going to force my browser to go to the secure HTTPS version so that nobody does get that error on accident and run them away when it wasn't really necessary. SSL certificate basically is going to ensure secure communication between the user's browser and the website. So it's protecting sensitive information such as their login credentials, their personal information, financial details, which hopefully you're using a reputable donation platform and they're going to handle all of that on their end, and none of that is actually being passed back and forth between the server that your website is on and the user's browser. There's no reason why you shouldn't have an HTTPS or a SSL certificate installed. They're completely free these days. Providing transparent financial information such as your annual report or financial statement or your 990s, or if you have a statement that is saying, hey, we send 100% of our money to do this thing. That's a huge deal in today's world because a lot of organizations are more in the 85% range. They are receiving donations and only 85% of it is going to the cause that they're telling people it's going to, and the other is all administrative and other things. So if you have some kind of huge statement like that, financial statement, and it's true, of course, and you can back it up with documentation, this would be a great thing to advertise on your website to show trust. You need a clear mission statement. And this kind of goes with the very first point on our checklist of being concise and clear with your mission and what it is that you're doing. That's going to help these visitors understand the purpose and the goals of your nonprofit, which is going to build that credibility and trust. All right, number 9, easy to find contact info. So this is going to ease people's minds that you're a real organization because they can not only reach out to you via a form on your website, but they can also see your address and verify it, your phone number, your email, etc. And they can look you up on Google, they can find third-party reviews, and you're not hiding it from them. You know, if I go to a website and I don't see contact info, it kind of throws a red flag like, why don't you want me to contact you? Why don't you want me to know more about your company, your organization? And you don't want your visitors thinking that. So if people have questions, the most frustrating thing for them is to not be able to get a hold of someone. And that is a quick way to have them leave and never come back, or worse, cancel their monthly donation because they couldn't easily get a hold of somebody. I've seen that happen time and time again, and you want to avoid this as much as possible. If you're going to offer a chat on your website, I see this all the time, the little chat bubble down in the right-hand corner or wherever it might be, make sure that it is monitored. Make sure that somebody's actually responding to those, and hopefully in a very timely manner, and preferably be even better if it was actually a real chat. Most of these, they fake like they're a chat, and then they fill out a form and it emails to somebody, and then they have to wait for somebody to email them back. This feels like bait and switch, and no one likes that, especially not with a nonprofit that they were considering giving to. So number 10, optimize your forms. All right, having optimized forms on your website means that the forms have been designed and structured to be user-friendly, intuitive, and easy to complete. The goal of optimized forms is to reduce the friction and the barriers to conversion. So make it more likely that visitors will complete the form and take the desired action. Forms should be quick to fill out. They should have errors that make sense to the end user. You know, if I fill something out and I hit submit and then it just pops up a screen that says invalid, well, that doesn't help me because I don't know what in the world was invalid. I can't even fix it. That's frustrating, and I'm just going to move on. Only ask for information that you absolutely need. Once again, reducing the barriers. If I don't have to know your phone number right now, I can ask for that at a later time, some other day. Make it easy. Name, email. If you don't have to have their address right now, don't ask for their address. Give quicker ways to create accounts or log in. You know, these days you can set up where somebody can log in with Facebook or log in with Google, and it grabs their email, their name, their phone number, whatever information for you, and creates the account, and they didn't have to manually enter all of that information in. Offer the most common methods of payment, or as many payment options as you can if you're able to. And then I also just recommend that you definitely use the ones that take the burden off of the end user. That would be Apple Pay, Google Pay, things like that, because they already have their information stored. All they have to do is click a button, and all of that information is transferred to you along with the money, and that makes life simple for them. It removes all barriers. Make your form fields clear on what information you're asking for. All right, if I see a form that just says business, I don't know if you want my business name, my business type, my business phone number, my address. That's just not clear. So make sure that your labels are extremely clear. Make sure that your form fields work on all devices. Make sure everything is labeled clearly. Doing this is going to give you two really important things: increased conversion rates. So you're reducing friction and barriers to conversion. Your optimized forms are going to increase the likelihood that visitors will complete the form and take that desired action. It's also going to improve your data quality. So an optimized form is going to help ensure that the data that you are collecting is actually accurate and relevant, which can help improve the quality of your leads and your customer or donor data. Number 11, social proof. All right, so customer reviews and ratings, so Google reviews, Trustpilot, things like that, that are third party, that are showing, hey, people have interacted with my organization and they have good things to say. Testimonials from your donors, from your volunteers, or those that your organization helps. Social media followers and engagement. If you can show that you have a large social media following or engagement on social media, then once again, this just shows these people that other people know about you and trust you and interact with you. If you've got influencer endorsements, whether that's the new social media influencers, YouTubers, or that's a highly well-known public figure, this is obviously immediately going to bring trust. If you can show subscriber or donor or volunteer counts that are actually numbers that show the masses are involved with you, then that's a great way to build social proof. So here's just a brief example. No Hungry Children, right? These are testimonials from various people. Some of them are donors. Some of them are volunteers who actually went on trips. Some of them are board members, just all kinds of people who are involved with the ministry. And then they also have this thing that pops up down in the left-hand corner that's actually showing, hey, not only are real people involved here, but real people are giving. And then one more over here, their social media account, right? This is just how many times this page has been shared on social media. So somebody can see that they don't even have to know what it is. They're seeing 1.4 thousand shares. That just means at least 1.4 thousand people have trusted this enough to share it with their friends and family. And so that These little things all together will build more trust. All right, number 12, A/B testing. A/B testing on a website is when you create 2 or more variations of either a web page or any part of your web page, and then you show them to different users to see which variation performs better in terms of user engagement, conversions, or any of your overall goals. So you could test your donation page, right? You could test recommended donation amounts, or even just the layout of the page. Maybe you want to show them a donation form first, and then you show some other people a page that has a video first and then a donation form. Maybe you can test other landing pages that you have. You can test your headlines, your subheadings, your call to action buttons, test your images and your graphics. Test your navigation and menu design. So change things up to see what is a better flow and makes more sense for people. Ultimately, you're going to want to only change one thing at a time. So if I'm going to test my main headline in the header of my website, I don't also want to change out my image. So the best way to do this is change my headline and then maybe go a week, 2 weeks, and just monitor the data, see how many people have clicked on my call to action there, how many people left the website without continuing to go to other pages or to read other sections, and then maybe change the headline again for another 2 weeks and see which one did better. So number 13, analytics installed and evaluated. The only way you're going to be able to A/B test is to have analytics installed, and so the ones I recommend are going to be Google Analytics. This is standard in the industry. If you don't have Google Analytics installed on your website, you need to do that. If you've got WordPress, they have a WordPress plugin that you could download and just get it all connected for you. At least have this just running so that in the future, if you need to reference data, you have it and you can do that. I also recommend everybody do Facebook Pixel, because if you're ever going to run ads in the future, this data being collected in the past is going to greatly help you to find the right audience to advertise to. So last and not least, number 14, regularly updated content. All right. So remember that everything on your website is painting a picture for the end user on who you are, what you do, and what your impact is. You're trying to earn their trust. And so if you have outdated information on your website that's prominent, it's showing people that you are not relevant, that you are not active. So don't put dates on things if you aren't going to keep your website up to date. So this includes blog posts as well as the copyright that's in the footer of your website. These are the two biggest that I see all the time. Is maybe somebody was active 2 years ago blogging for your organization, and all of that is on your homepage, and it shows dates from 2 or 3 years ago as the most recent blog post. Well, that throws red flags immediately for people who are on your website. Same thing with the copyright. This one's huge. Sometimes it's 4 or 5 years out of date, and most people maybe don't see that. But in, once again, painting a picture of everything, if I'm seeing out-of-date pictures and I'm seeing out-of-date videos and I'm seeing out-of-date blog posts and I'm seeing out-of-date copyright, I'm thinking these people are not active and they don't care, and I'm definitely not going to give them my money. If you're A/B testing, then your page is going to continue to evolve and it's going to show that you're active because you're always changing images, you're always changing headlines, you're always changing call to actions, you're hopefully putting out new content in order to try and engage that end user. So that's the 14 steps to a better converting nonprofit website. They're not in any particular order. These, once again, are just 14 areas that I think every nonprofit should stop, you should pause, you should take a look at, you should implement, and it's going to, in the end, if you'll take the checklist, you'll go to chase-douglas.com/checklist, you'll download it, go through it one by one. There's action steps there that kind of go over what you need to go and do in order to improve each one of these 14 steps. I guarantee you will start to see better conversions on your website. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some benefit and some value out of it, and we will see you on the next one.